Why is this guy doing so well?
That is very scary. Leave that man.
Hello and welcome to the League Bound podcast, and we have a special episode today. I'm Brandon, and today I'm here with my guys Jake and Brody, and I'm excited for today's episode. How about y'all?
Of course, man. We got the big board special pulling up on March Madness, and we think it's time to start to get some of the actual NBA draft rankings out here officially from League Bound. I don't think we've done too much of this yet.
Yeah, we got two big boards here from Jake and Brandon. I think we figured that you guys deserve to see how these guys are seeing all these players. We might be talking about them all the time, but I don't think we always put a number on their spot on that board.
And I think going into March Madness, it'll be interesting during the tournament to see where, some guy is ranked, and then all of a sudden during the tournament, bro is just going off. So we'll see if some of the stuff has to get shifted up. It may have to be, honestly.
If we have to make another one, so be it. But I'm excited to get into this one. I'm excited to flame Jake. I'm excited to just see what he's got on his mind. I'm excited to see what you, Brody, have to say about ours. But let's get into it. Let's start off with number one.
The number one big board spot for the 2023 draft class. I think is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I think we all know who this is.
Yeah.
Unless y'all tripping.
No, I'm just kidding. No, I think we have Victor Wembanyama here, number one.
No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. So Victor, Brody, I know you wanted to hit on this a little bit. Officially listed at 7'5".
Let me hear you guys talk about him first.
Yeah. Well, what is there to say? He's just by far the best prospect in this class. I've been on record saying probably a better prospect than LeBron James was.
Bro is 7'5" when we have confirmation now in an article that just came out. 7'5", can move and play like a guard, but also has the versatility to play down low, block shots, runs the floor so well, and can just do things that somebody his size should not even be able to think about doing. Yeah. But here he is, so we gotta put him number one.
The potential to be the best defensive player in the league and also be a top 10 offensive player. You don't see that very often. Guys like Michael Jordan have been that, where they are the best on both ends. That's what makes actual GOATs. That's what makes finals MVPs. That's what makes MVPs. And that's where I feel like Victor Wembanyama can get to.
Yeah, and can I just say that told you so when I said that he's been listed 7'2", projected 7'2", 7'3" for the longest time, and I just could not stand believing that for the longest time. And I'd been telling the podcast as well as you guys just over and over, I'm like, man, they need to stop talking about this guy being 7'3", because he is way taller than that.
The thing that's insane though is he's 7'5", and he could probably still keep growing.
Yep. I guess there could be concerns for him growing so much that he loses a bit of shot, because I remember we were also talking about, there's a certain height you get to where it's can you even shoot properly, because your arm is going to release at the above the rim.
I'm also just worried about his feet too, because as you grow and if he does go to the league and puts on any more weight, I feel if he does it kind of slowly, it won't be as big of an issue. But I feel over time that's just gonna be a lot of stress. And we've seen with bigs like Yao and other 7-footers, height and feet are a real issue. So
yeah. But luckily we have seen those videos coming out where he's doing barefoot bear crawls out before in pregame. And it seems like that organization that he's playing for right now is doing a fantastic job of preparing him, keeping his body healthy. I don't think he's had any injury sit-outs at all this season. So
taking him very seriously and just everything.
Yeah,
his future.
We've seen bigs in the past where the medical attention and the way that trainers work with players has been a lot different than it is today. And especially with the amount of prized possession that Victor is, I could see whoever ends up getting the number one pick this year to take him, they are going to throw every single protection on him with the medical staff, the training that he goes through. So I don't really see that as an issue.
He's in good hands.
Mm-hmm.
How about that number 2 spot? Here is where it already starts to get interesting. Just because I have heard people talk about it on the podcast, and it'll get interesting here. You know what? Enough talking. Let's hear these number 2s. Brandon, what's your number 2?
I'm gonna go first because I already know Jake's gonna have something crazy. But I'm gonna go Scoot Henderson, the point guard for the G League Ignite. He's had some injury issues this year, it seems, but I'm not concerned about it too much. And when I watch him play, the athleticism he has, the basketball IQ he has, the playmaking, his mid-range game needs a little bit of work, but I feel like also that's kind of a shot that's dying in the league. So, but the way he gets to the rim, the way he creates for others, the way that he can read defenses already, I feel like is such a good thing for him to have. And that's why I'm pretty high on Scoot Henderson myself. But Jake,
All right. First, I would like to start off saying I am still high on Scoot Henderson. I think he can be a good player. But to me, what it comes down to is player comparison ceilings. We've heard Russell Westbrook comparisons for Scoot Henderson. Obviously, fantastic player, Hall of Famer. We've heard Kevin Durant comparisons for my number 2 player in Brandon Miller. We just saw him drop a crazy game in overtime, I believe it was, against South Carolina. That was a really fun game this past week. I don't know why everyone is just so steadfast with Scoot being for sure the number 2. I feel like Brandon Miller is just as good of a prospect in a different way. He's arguably the best shooter in this draft class. He's 6'8". He can get to the rim and actually put people in the rim. We saw that against South Carolina this year. So, I'm just very high on Brandon Miller. I think he can be as good, if not better, than Scoot Henderson.
see, I can respect it. I can respect it because at the end of the day, I do feel like Brandon Miller does have a crazy high ceiling. Plus, too, I also just want to talk about, we're not trying to dodge the Brandon Miller allegations, but I feel like in the long term, that's not really going to affect his draft stock.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. Like looking into the case and like what was said, it seems like he was pretty compliant with law enforcement, and I know a lot of people have mixed opinions, but I feel like at the end of the day, there's not really much that could have been done. And even the like district attorney and I think it was just the Alabama district attorney or the Tuscaloosa district attorney. She said that there wasn't really much that they could charge Miller with in the case because he was unknowing or didn't know much about the firearm that was in question. But I would also like to send out prayers to the victim, Jamia Harris, I believe was her name. It was an unfortunate situation. But I have Brandon Miller going 3 in my draft. So I think that Jake's take is pretty respectable, especially this last week, because even yesterday against Arkansas, he was going up against Nick Smith. He had another solid outing. That South Carolina game was just crazy, highlight after highlight. I had to put him over the Thompson twins because I just think, like Jake said, that ceiling it's a lot higher, and he's showing each game that he's somebody to be scared of.
He's unreal. That's what. And I think it'll show the most when March Madness comes around and people get to see him on the bright lights. Kind of like Paulo did, I feel like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and kind of off that, I have Scoot Henderson as my 3rd prospect. Obviously, the best point guard in this class by a pretty good margin. And, I mean, like I said, Russell Westbrook comparisons, that type of guy that can get you rebounds, be physical, get into the lane easily. It's all just going to come down to, is that jump shot going to be serviceable to him and be something that in the playoffs when teams start to pack the paint, can he impact the game shooting the ball? In the Westbrook's prime, he was able to do that a little bit, and we'll see if Scoot Henderson can do it as well.
Now, this might be my first, kind of unconventional take, but at number 4, I am going to choose one of the Thompson twins, but I'm not going to choose Amin.
Ooh.
I'm going to choose Azar Thompson, strictly because I think he's a better shooter than his brother. He's not world's better than his brother, but him and Amin do a lot of similar things, and I feel like Azar having kind of that better shooting ability, and he's shown that he's willing to shoot it more. Also, too, when you look at the stats, and at that next level, I feel like too they're also both in situations where they're pretty ball dominant, and like as they go to the NBA, they'll slowly be more and more, become more off ball. I think they'll still probably initiate a lot of the offense, but when they're in the wings and the corners shooting catch and shoot threes, Azar has shown that he's a guy who can hit a lot of those shots, and I think that him just having that slight advantage shooting wise is why I want to take him over his brother and take him at number 4.
Let me try to back you up on that. I want to pull up his stats for the 2022-23 season.
I know that they had a playoff game.
So, well, it actually looks here that Amen Thompson really doesn't pull a lot of threes in the first place.
Mhm.
But, yeah, I mean, you are right. Asar Thompson is 29, pretty much 30% from the three-point line.
Amen shoots like 20.
And Amen is 25. So
I mean, it's not worlds better, but like just looking
it
at
is noticeable.
Yeah, looking at it. And yesterday, no, it might have been a few days ago, they had a playoff game for their overtime league, and he shot like 5 for 10 from 3. So, and I feel like that's probably the most he shot in a game.
I was going to say there's also a case to be made that Asar also does just take more threes, and you were talking about he has the tendency to do that.
Mhm.
Averages about, well, it says he averages here about, what is that? Yeah, about 4 3-pointers per game, where Amen is around that 2 to 3 range.
Yeah.
And I think it's worthy of saying, guys in college or just obviously now with other outlets, it's not always that if you're a bad shooter, especially as a wing, you're not going to eventually become at least serviceable. Guys like Jaylen Brown were around that below 30% to around 30% from 3 in college. And now Jaylen Brown is one of the best wings in the entire NBA, and he can shoot threes. Not amazing, but he's definitely serviceable from downtown. So Asar is the better shooter so far statistically, but I think with both the Thompson twins, there is still a pretty high ceiling in terms of their development just because they're so young.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to talk about the Thompson twins for my number 4 spot because I have Jarris Walker at number 4.
All right.
6'7" unit. Best physical player in college basketball outside of maybe Zach Edey. I would say he's the best player on the best team in college basketball right now. And to do that as just a 19-year-old, I think is extremely impressive. He's had huge games. He can shoot from the perimeter. He can work out of the post. He can get to the rim and finish with both hands. I don't see how Jarris Walker comes into the NBA and isn't a all-rookie first-team level player just because he's already got that famous NBA-ready body.
And again, another kid that we're probably going to see, at least we hope to see bloom in March Madness, and where these fans that are trying to see the players that could end up on their teams that are struggling right now next season really show how good they are.
Yeah.
And this is
How
another
about that 5?
This is another take that I kind of want to flame, but at the end of the day, I can't because at number 5, I have Jarris Walker. I mean, but he's also a player who's like, as the season goes on, he's slowly improved and shown more and more. I think at the time of this, he's kind of slowed down a bit, but there was a while where he was offensively, he was showing, that he does have a lot to that side of the game as well, where coming into this season, he was kind of just strictly the defensive guy, but he's shown that, he does have some capabilities within Houston's offense to create for himself, to get down low. I remember during my, when we did a breakdown of him a few weeks ago, but I was talking about how he kind of reminded me of like a light Zion Williamson, when he really gets going. But hopefully during the tournament, we can see him have some more dominant performances and start to catch fire again. Because I really do feel like there's so much that's just untapped with him.
So you've got Jarris at 5 then?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I have a Thompson twin at my 5, but I do not have a Sar Thompson. I have a Men Thompson. Like you said, they're very similar players, so you're kind of splitting hairs at this point. They have pretty much the same measurables, 6'7", about the same wingspan, same weight type of players. So obviously that's going to come with being twins. But I mean, Amen Thompson, just a classic wing with high-level defensive potential, really long athlete, gets to the rim pretty easily. It's just going to come down to that shooting. I mean, you mentioned he was like 25% from 3 or worse.
25% from 3. He doesn't take a lot of shots, but
so
it is notable.
It's going to be the big question. I've seen videos of them in the past working with Mike Miller, working on their jump shots, both of them. And, I mean, Mike Miller seemed to think there was potential with their release, and they were just working on getting things up quicker, being more consistent with their motion. And I think that's something that a lot of longer wings struggle with, especially when they're really young, is they kind of just rely on shooting over people and not really focusing on the fundamentals of shooting. That's why you see guys like Grady Dick this year, who has one of the most robotic jumpers in the league. He's one of the best shooters in this draft class. So I think if they can get that part of their game down, I think Amen Thompson specifically can be a big-time player.
And one last thing to mention about this guy, Amen is 66% from two-point range, which I think is probably pretty efficient.
Yeah,
as well as 56.6% field goal in general.
Mm-hmm.
So,
once again, moving on to number 6. It seems that I'm just following Jake, but my number 6 is Amen Thompson. I do want to say, I know on this podcast we have talked about how we maybe aren't as high on them, but like even looking at their game footage, there still is. They might not have the highest ceilings of some of these other players towards the top, but like what they're doing now alone and just the athleticism that they have, I feel like at the end of the day, they're still going to be solid players in this league, where some of these other guys, it's kind of questionable where they're going to be. So I think that alone is why we have the Thompsons so high. But for Amen, I know a lot of people think that he's better than his brother, but I think Azar is more versatile. I still like Amen's game and what he can do. I know he was the MVP of the overtime league, so
you're valuing that 3-point range a bit more. I mean, it's a shooter's league.
If they are in a situation where, they're on a contender, I ideally see them having other guys that they can go to, or maybe somebody else who's kind of like the star of that team. They could maybe, I could see them, maybe kind of being like a Ja Morant, but I feel like that's also just, I don't know.
But did you see Ja in college? I mean, are they doing Ja stuff?
I mean, kind of, sort of. I feel like too, even though he was the number 2 pick, I don't think people really expected him to be the kind of player he is now, if that makes sense. I could just be talking out of my butt. I don't know. But I don't see that necessarily with the Thompson twins. I feel like they'll be more of like second guys, if that makes sense, especially in a league that's just so talented now. But
all right, for my number 6, I do not have a Thompson twin. I have Keontae George, one of the best guards in this draft. I think he is a step below Scoot Henderson, but I mean, Keontae George is such an incredible scoring guard. I mean, we saw him a couple of weeks ago against Kansas, just taking over the game in the first half, and I feel like that's a trait of some of the best guards in the entire league. I mean, to be able to just control the offense, use your dribble to get to your spot, and just pull up shots that, frankly, no one else can make on the team, I think is a huge plus for Keontae George, especially being such a young player. He's 6'4", so if he's playing that point guard position, he's got the perfect height for it. And he's also shown this year at Baylor that he can work with some of the other guards, like Adam Flagler, especially, and LJ Cryer. So if he goes to a team that already has another facilitator and point guard, I think he'll work there as well, which again, improves his value on the big board. So Keontae George, you're my number 6 player.
Best guard by far in college basketball?
I don't know if it's by far, but I think he is the number 1 in college basketball.
Well,
I think it gets really interesting the next 10 picks here.
yeah, I was going to say, I can already tell based on that pick, we're going to start having some
disputes.
But first, for my, well, not first.
Ooh, I see this.
7th, I know he hasn't really gotten to play much, but he played 2 games this week, looked pretty solid in both, and it's only reignited my love for his game. But I'm going to have to go Nick Smith Jr. at number 7. He sat out with a lot of knee injury problems this season, and Arkansas hasn't really done too well without him. They're still probably going to make the tournament. But there's just so much I like about his game, the way he plays, the intelligence he has. I don't remember who was calling the game yesterday, but they said it best. He's a ball-dominant guard who's not dominant, meaning he's a guy who's willing to pass and create for his teammates, but he can also get his own buckets comfortably. He has a nice little mid-range game. He can shoot from outside. He can create for himself, which I think this high up is so important to have if you're going to be, especially as a guard, because especially in this class, there's just so many of them, and having the ability to create for yourself, create for others, just the intelligence he has. And from what I've read, it seems like he has a pretty good work ethic. He's a guy I'm just really high on, can get a bucket. He's just fun to watch also, too, in my opinion. So
he is fun to watch, but he's been fun to watch for 2 weeks. So a guy that I've had fun watching all year long is my number 7 player in Gregory Jackson. GG Jackson, inside my top 7.
Whoa. He put up 7.
I got to do it, man. He's probably, outside of Brandon Miller, probably my favorite player in this draft class. I mean, I can't say Victor is my favorite just because everyone would say that. But GG Jackson, I think I'm kind of establishing a theme here. I'm pretty much going on upside here for most of my top 10 list, because you look at a guy like GG Jackson, 6'9", he can score at all 3 levels, defensive potential. You're thinking of a guy like Jason Tatum, who has been an MVP caliber player pretty much all year. He just hit that big 3 against the Sixers yesterday to win the game. And I feel like GG Jackson at 18 years old.
You trying to start stuff now.
At 18 years old, can be that level of player. I mean, we've seen young players like Shaedon Sharp step into the league just this past year and be pretty important players on the Portland Trailblazers, and I don't see how GG Jackson is going to be any different.
My only thing with GG Jackson is I just wish we could see, I wish he almost committed to North Carolina still, or stayed. That was the place that he went to, just because I want to see how he plays with other stars. Because I feel like it is also kind of hurting him that he's at South Carolina and he's probably doing things that he's just not going to get to do in the league. Not even necessarily from a shot selection standpoint, but just the type of role he has to play, the position that he is at on the floor. Because I feel like he's also going to be required. This can kind of be a good thing and maybe a bad thing, but he's required to do a lot of stuff that he may not really need to do when he's in the league. I feel like he's not going to be as much of a post player that he is, kind of with South Carolina. But I think
sorry.
No, you can go.
No, I was just going to make a joke. I was going to say, but isn't he supposed to be that guy? I mean, he doesn't think he's supposed to be that guy, but is he supposed to be that guy?
I'm supposed to be oh my God, GG. I don't see myself as that.
I think he's that guy. I feel like if you're going to be my number 7 player, you better be that guy. So.
But all I got to say is Tennessee, one of the best defenses in the country. I want to fact check this.
Okay. Pull it up. I know what you're going to go for here.
I know. I'm pretty sure they held him scoreless. Okay, so they played Tennessee.
We're on Facebook, Instagram Live.
They played Tennessee again yesterday. They held him to 5. He was 2 for 12. Then
happens.
January 7th, played Tennessee again. Or that was the first time they played Tennessee. It was an 85-42 loss. He was 0 for 8. Bro had 0 points. That's your number 7 guy?
Happens. I mean, he's supposed to still be in high school this year. We've seen guys like Imani Bates last year struggle at times at Memphis. People kind of dropped off on him. And now that he's kind of at that age where he's supposed to be playing college basketball, we've seen him put up multiple 30 bombs, a 40 bomb. So I'm honestly not that concerned. I feel like GG Jackson on a team where him and Michi are really the only players that people are concerned about in a scouting report. It's not that surprising that he's kind of just been limited in those games. But I also think it's interesting you leave out some of his actual good games when you try to flame him.
I've given him his praise. I've given him his praise on the breakdown.
All I'm going to say is even Bryce wasn't getting clamped like that. Bryce was putting up numbers every night. It did not matter.
Let me pull up the good games of GG Jackson, just because I feel like I need to combat that. 22 points against Georgetown, 24 against Eastern Michigan. So that's against Imani Bates. He had 4 threes in that one. 30 points against Auburn, 10 of 21 shooting. Bro is a bucket. I don't know. I mean, you can look at those. Maybe he's just inconsistent right now, if that's what you want to say. But I feel like, again, I'm going off upside. I'm going off potential and ceiling. And I'm watching a guy that's 6'9" that is doing this stuff in the SEC. So,
all right, wait. So I forgot. What number are we even at?
He just took 7, so you go 8.
Okay, 8. All right. This is a player we haven't really talked about much, and I want to talk about more.
Ooh.
But I'm going to have to go with Cam Whitmore from Villanova. He's one of the more athletic guys in this class. He has pretty good size. He gets downhill with ease, and he's shown, too, that his outside game is developing. This is a guy who I was pretty high on coming into the season. I was low-key hoping that, we would see him up in that top 3 conversation, kind of having the Brandon Miller year, if you will. But even then, I still feel like there's a lot to like. I feel like, too, he's also going to be one of those players who, when he gets to the league, that's kind of when he's really going to bloom. So that alone is why I have him at 8. I feel like there's a good, solid ground where we are now, but there's definitely a lot more room for him to improve, and I just like the basics of his game right now.
I think Cam Whitmore is a pretty decent selection. That's not too far off of where I have him. But for number 8, I have the final Thompson twin reference of the episode. I have Asar Thompson at number 8. I think he's a little similar to Gregory Jackson, but just a little bit worse. That's pretty much what it comes down to. They were pretty close in my opinion. This 6, 7, 8 range, Keontae George, Gregory Jackson, and Asar Thompson were neck and neck to me, but that's just the way it's shaken down today at least. So Asar Thompson, decent shooter, not anything special, good defensive wing, eighth best player.
Number 9, I'm going to show some Big Ten love. And I'm going to go with Jet Howard.
Oh,
Jet Howard. I mean,
very high.
But Jet Howard, man, I love the way he shoots the rock. He's shooting 36% on the season, which is that's near 40%. It's pretty respectable. But he's a great catch and shoot guy. He's shown he can create for himself. And the reason why I had to take him over, I know what you're gonna say. The reason I had to take him over Jalen Hood-Schifino is just because I feel like his game is going to translate a lot. I don't know what the word, more fluidly than maybe Jalen's would. I'm pretty high on Jalen too, though. But Jet, I feel like there's so much that I feel like in a year he's gonna be a guy who has like a 5-3 game, and Twitter's gonna be like, "Oh my gosh, Jet Howard, where did he come from?" And it's like, we knew about this guy. But yeah, I'm pretty excited to see him in the league. He's kind of a mid-lottery guy, but I don't even know if he'll actually go 9 in the real draft. But I'm a guy who's kind of excited to see where he's like paired up with, because I feel like the pieces around him are really what's going to determine his development.
I like the respect for Jet Howard. I think he is worthy of being in this upper echelon of a big board, but I'm surprised I am putting this guy ahead of you. I've got Grady Dick at number 9. The best shooter in college, but he's not just a shooter. I mean, he can actually fly a little bit. He's not too much of a lob threat per se, but he's got the vertical potential to be not just a Kyle Korver type of player. So 6'7" on the wing. I mean, like I said, best shooter in the college basketball season so far. I feel like he's worthy of it. I feel like a little bit like Tyler Hero, people might kind of been sleeping on him just because, you don't want to say it, but just some obvious reasons. But I feel like Grady Dick is someone that people shouldn't sleep on. I think he's a top 10 player.
Interesting.
Number 10, I have Keontae George, actually. So I do think Grady Dick is the best freshman in the Big 12, but Keontae, I feel like that game against Kansas, that kind of showed what he can be at the next level. He had we talked about this last episode, but he had 2 insane threes, one from NBA range, an and one three, and then he had a poster on KJ Adams, and my computer just died, but he had a poster on KJ Adams, and that just showed the electric player he can be. We haven't seen that at times, but I feel like when you have a ceiling like that, you can't let a guy like him fall too low in the draft. But we've also seen with guys like this, they can also be pretty hit or miss, and so that does kind of add a little bit of a scare kind of to selecting him. But Keontae, I believe in Keontae, and I want to see him do well. So I'm going to have to go with him at 10.
For my number 10, I've got someone that people might think I'm sleeping a little too much on, and that is the quiet killer Cam Whitmore. 6'7" small forward, just a physical beast. I mean, kind of in the way that Jarris Walker is for Houston, he kind of just sets the tone for Villanova. He's got that big, strong frame at the small forward position. I think he could play a little bit of small ball 4 at different times, at least if you have a good defensive big to play him with. But I definitely think he'll be more at that small forward position, maybe even shooting guard potentially.
Yeah,
We've seen guys like Desmond Bane kind of in that same body type put together some big performances as a 2 guard. But Cam Whitmore, I mean, like I said, kind of a quiet killer. It's not really in the spotlight too much. I'm not sure why. He's putting together some pretty impressive performances for Villanova. And I think of all the guys on my top 10, I think Cam Whitmore could be potentially, are they in the March Madness tournament right now? I don't even remember. Well, unfortunately, we may not see Cam Whitmore in March. That's where I would have liked to see him get to eventually, because as someone who hasn't been in the spotlight too much all year, I thought that would be a great opportunity for him to boost himself up in terms of draft stock, just because of the amount of eyes on him during March. But, Villanova kind of struggling this year, having a down year, may not get to see it, but maybe he'll have to be a combine guy to get up there.
I'm hoping Villanova goes on a late run because I do want to see him play. He's really exciting.
Unfortunately, though, we're kind of running out of games to go on a late run. You basically got to win the conference tournament if you want to do it.
Just win out. It's not that hard. Just win out.
Yeah,
honestly.
I guess so.
Just win out.
Hey, Nebraska will do it. Maybe, surely Villanova too, right?
Just win out, bro. With my 11th pick, I'm going to go Gigi Jackson. And I put him here just because we're getting to the spot now where it's kind of hard to, really get a gauge. Well, not get a gauge, but like during the actual draft, it's just going to come down to team fit. And so I chose Gigi because I felt like he's a guy who creates for himself better than some of the guys I put under him. And, I was just slandering him a minute ago. I'm not going to lie. But he has had some pretty good performances where he's shown he can do damage in a lot more ways than one from a scoring standpoint. Threes, mid-range. He has a nasty mid-range game. And he's not one of those guys where it's like he's not going to take it to the league with him. He's one of those guys where I could see late in game you need somebody to get you a bucket. They give the ball to Gigi. So I think for that alone, I had to take him number 11.
Wish they gave the ball to him now, but
they didn't do it in that game against Alabama, which I still find.
They didn't do it, or they did?
They didn't.
Yeah.
That
is what he went on Instagram Live about, so.
They were letting Michi shoot half-court threes.
Yeah, against that Auburn game. But for my 11th spot, I have a guy we haven't hit on at all yet, so it's a new entry to the big board. We got Cason Wallace, number 11 out of Kentucky, one of the best guards in the SEC. And looking at current bracketology right now, Kentucky is listed as an 8 seed, potentially playing Purdue if they make it out of the round of 64. And I feel like that is a perfect opportunity for Cason Wallace to just abuse those guards like Fletcher Lawyer and Braden Smith at Purdue and put together a big-time performance and potentially an upset over the 1 seed. But Cason Wallace as a player, the reason why I have him so high, I mean, he's good at everything, kind of like Dyson Daniels was last year. He's 6'3", he's got pretty good size, got a long wingspan, plays defense. He's not afraid to actually take a tough challenge in the backcourt, which I think is important. And we've seen guys like DeJounte Murray have success by not shying away from taking on a tough matchup against one of the league's best guards. And I feel like Cason Wallace, if he does develop into that defensive player like I think he could be an interesting piece to a backcourt in the NBA.
Number 12, I went with Grady Dick. And the only reason I put him so low, he is probably the best shooter, like just pure catch and shoot shooter in this class. But as I said with Gigi, I feel like guys who create have higher value, and Grady doesn't create for himself as well as some of these other guys. But if you just need a guy to stand in the wing or come off screens, catch a shot, watch it go in, nothing but net, you take Grady. And he's 6'9".
Or if you need a guy to make some funny TikToks as well, get the social media buzz up.
That too. You need some comedy. You need a funny guy, a guy to light up the locker room, a guy named Dick.
Last name Dick.
You go with Grady.
Great marketing.
You go with Grady. He's going to be the Alex Caruso of the NBA. Or the next Alex Caruso. Just watch.
Well, hopefully he can play defense like Caruso. But for my number 12 spot, I have got... I'm low-key thinking about making a quick adjustment here. But I'm probably already going to get flamed enough already by pick number 12, so I'll keep it as is. I've got Nick Smith Jr. at number 12. Like I mentioned, haven't got to see too much of him, and I value resume over just expectations. I think guys ahead of him like Keontae George, Gigi Jackson even, obviously Brandon Miller at the top. These are guys that were kind of in that range. I guess not really Gigi Jackson, but coming into the season, guys like Brandon Miller and Cam Whitmore, they were all in that range with Nick Smith at the number 3 pick. And so far, pretty much all those guys have played a lot this year. And Nick Smith, unfortunately, due to injury, has kind of taken a back seat in the national media. But as of late, he's been playing pretty well, back-to-back 20-point performances. So he probably has the biggest potential to rise on my board, but he will have to put together some more consistency at the end of the season and maybe lead Arkansas forward a little bit, because they have definitely been the most underachieving team in college basketball to me, and a lot of that has to do with the unlucky injuries of Nick Smith. That's why he's at 12. Currently, Arkansas is at an 8 seed, potentially playing Illinois, so that could actually be a pretty fun matchup.
Terrence Shannon and the... Moving on, I will actually be choosing another Arkansas player at number 13, right?
Mm-hmm.
I will be going with Anthony Black. Now, the reason why I have him so high is because I just like what he does defensively. He has great size. At the end of the day, he's just a solid role player, or he's already going to be that when he comes into the league. Great basketball IQ. I feel like he's a guy you can kind of put him anywhere and he'll do it. And he can handle the ball, and that's just a nice trait to have when you're somebody of that size, make plays for others. And I feel like in a lot of ways, he's kind of similar to Cason Wallace, but Cason Wallace might even be a better defensive player in college, if that makes sense. But I feel like at the next level, I would like to bank on Anthony Black for the future, just because of his size and some of the guys he's going to be going up against. So, Anthony Black, you were my 13th pick.
For my number 13, I actually just made a switch a moment ago. I had to switch to Jet Howard. He's just been a little bit more consistent than who I just moved down to number 14 coming up. But 6'8" guard wing kind of hybrid player that is potentially the best shooter in the Big Ten Conference, at least from three. And I think the biggest reason why I like him so much is that he's been such a good shooter while also taking a ton of threes. We've seen guys have maybe 2 or 3 a game, be a 40% shooter coming out of college, and then they kind of flame off a little bit once their role is expanded. I feel like Jet Howard could probably become an even better, efficient offensive player when his role diminishes at the NBA level, because he's probably not going to be forced to take 10 threes in a game to beat Iowa. He'll probably come in on an NBA team off the bench right away, put up maybe 5 or 6 threes, go 4 for 6, and just be one of the best young role players in the league.
That is a good point you make. When you go into the league, a lot of these players now, their role is going to be a lot simplified in the league. And that also, too, was something I kind of thought about with Jet. It's like I feel like having other people around him, he's not going to have to do as much for himself. And he's one of those players who I feel like, in a way, kind of like Jordan Poole, I feel like he'll kind of blossom when he has other guys around him who are doing their own thing, and he'll just play freely. But I like that pick there at 11, at 13, even though I had him a little bit higher. For number 14, I'm going to have to go with another Big Ten guy, Jalen Hood-Schifino. Had 35 yesterday against Purdue and was pretty big in their series sweep of one of the best teams in the Big Ten. But he's a guy who I feel like when he gets hot, he can be a pretty dangerous player. He doesn't do as much damage from three-point line as some of these other guys, but he gets to the rim, gets to the mid-range pretty well. And I think the way he does it, those will all translate to the league. But also, too, I feel like he's a guy where he'll fall in the draft probably mid to late lottery. He'll have other guys around him that can kind of teach him and just kind of help him kind of prosper in his role. And over time, I could see him being a veteran who, like, you need to get some minutes off the bench, or, you just need, more scoring. He's a guy who will come in and, provide that.
I'm happy to say that was our first match since the number 1 spot with Victor Wembanyama. I initially had him at 13. I had Jet Howard at 14. I had to flip him just because Jet's been a little bit more consistent from the beginning of the year until now. But Jalen Hood-Schifino for the Hoosiers has just been on fire ever since their first win over Purdue earlier this season. Obviously, Brandon just mentioned they just got the win yesterday, I believe, over Purdue. So they swept them. And a big reason for that was his monster day at career high. And that's not been his only game this year that he's gone off. He's had a couple 30-point games. He can hit threes. I've seen him hit 5 threes multiple times this year. And being 6'5", I could see him being a pretty good defensive player as well as someone that could get those 3-pointers off. So I think there's a lot of upside for Jalen Hood-Schifino, especially because he is just a freshman, but he plays with kind of that veteran mentality, if you will. He seems so cool under pressure. He doesn't get sped up at all, and that's a pretty rare trait. And as a point guard coming into the league, I don't know if he'll play point guard for sure. He is 6'5", so he might see some action as a 2, but it's usually said that the guard position is the toughest to translate from college to the NBA level. But I feel like Jalen Hood-Schifino, a guy that already looks so calm under pressure, is probably going to transition pretty well.
And I'm going to have to go another Big Ten guy, emphasis on the small forward, the 6'6" small forward, Bryce Sensabaugh. I think I'm going to have to go with him because he's probably, offensively, he's one of the best players in the Big Ten. It sucks that he's on kind of a bad team because I feel like, once again, he's having a season that's kind of being overlooked, kind of similar to Gigi Jackson, honestly. But I just like the way that he can kind of score from everywhere, mid-range, the 3. He is an undersized guy, as I said before, but I feel like he has the strength to kind of find a way in the NBA. And he also brings a little bit of defense as well. So he's a guy I'm fairly high on. I think that any team would like to have a guy like him.
Back onto some changes here. Number 15, me and Brandon do not match yet. I've got Kyle Filipowski out of Duke. A 6'11" freshman. He can play the 5. He can play the 4. He's shot threes this year, which has been something they thought he could do, but he's proven it to be actually part of his game, not just theorized about. He's played good defense. He's been one of the key players to a lot of Duke's wins this year in a down year for them. And I think he has a lot of potential. He's kind of being slept on to me just because of how bad Duke has been by their standards this year. I feel like if Duke was back to that top 10 team like they usually are, I feel like he would be getting a lot more attention, but it hasn't impacted my viewing of him. I feel like he's the 15th best player.
See, I have a Duke player, but it ain't Kyle Filipowski. I have, at 16, I have Broderick Whitehead. And now, I don't mean to spoil, but this dude said he left him off of his top 30. And to me, I think that is absolutely wild. But looking at Broderick's game, he has the athleticism. He can shoot the ball pretty well. I think he's shooting the ball a lot better than people thought he would, actually.
Broderick Whitehead on the season per game is shooting 39% from the field and 41% from 3. 93 from the free throw line.
That's what I was about to say. I feel like the storylines, I feel like, are pretty similar to, like, coming into their seasons. They're both Duke players, but AJ Griffin last year and Broderick Whitehead, I feel like they're having pretty similar arcs where people thought AJ Griffin was going to be a way more athletic guy than he was, but he came and showed that he was probably one of the best shooters in the class. And I think it's a little bit different with Whitehead, but it's kind of similar. Like, people thought he was going to be more of an athletic beast who could just kind of get down into the paint whenever he wanted. But he's showing that he has a little bit more, I guess, finesse to his game, if you will. He's shooting 41% from 3, like Jake said, and he's playing a similar role to AJ Griffin that AJ Griffin did on this team. And they might not be winning the most, but I feel like the way he's playing now, and if he shows more of that aggression that people thought he had initially, I really like the way that he's going to play in the NBA. And I feel like with a guy of his size, his strength, you've just got to take him at some point here in this top 30. I low-key even think about it. I think I might have even taken him a little bit low. But at 16, I'm rocking with Broderick Whitehead.
16, I got Chris Murray, the twin brother of Keegan Murray, who's been a pretty good player for arguably the best team in the West, the Sacramento Kings. I mean, they're not exactly the same player, but they've had some pretty similar performances in college. Chris Murray, he can shoot the 3. He is a lefty, if that matters to anyone. So he has been a pretty important factor in Iowa, making somewhat of a late resurgence in college basketball this season after struggling a little bit when he was out earlier on in the year. But I feel like Chris Murray is a little bit slept on just because he is a junior now. His performances, I feel like if he was doing this at 19 years old, he would be for sure a top 10 player. But just because he's probably about, 20 or 21 right now by now as a junior. Let's see where he's at. Yeah, he's about 22 and a half years old. So that is probably the biggest reason why he's fallen so hard on the mock drafts and the big boards. But I feel like coming into the league, he's going to be a very impactful player wherever he goes. So top 16 in my board.
For number 17, this is a player I'm actually really, really high on. I'm kind of mad that I wasn't familiar with his game a little bit sooner than I was. But Taylor Hendricks, he plays for UCF. He's a 6'9" power forward. And I think he's also shooting the 3 at 40%. Just the size he has, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a sucker for dudes who are about 6'8", 6'9", whatever position they are, and can shoot the ball well. And I think he had the free throw. I don't have it pulled up now, but he had the free throw percentage to match from what I remember. And he's also a guy who has some athleticism. He can be a lob threat at the next level, and he can also step out, hit a little 3. He can play D. He's once again, we're seeing a similar arc where he's not playing in one of these major Power 5 conferences. So his value is kind of getting underlooked. But also, too, he's one of the better bigs in this class, I feel like, which I think it's absurd how many guys we're taking that are like small forwards or guards, and like the amount of bigs in this class is just kind of mid, to be honest. But he's a guy who I feel like if he were in a better conference, say like ACC, SEC, we'd probably put him in like the top 10. But I also, with my big board, I kind of also wanted to factor in like where they are probably going to get drafted. So that's why I kind of have them down here.
I do not have Taylor Hendricks as high. I have a different guy that I was not familiar with coming into this season, and I have Maxwell Lewis out of Pepperdine at number 17. I feel like just another 6'7" long wing. He's gotten to the rim. He uses a lot of long strides to just blow by people, and kind of like Brandon said, he can step out and shoot the three a little bit. I've seen Paul George comparisons for him. That's probably pretty far off. He's not as much of a slam dunk threat that prime Paul George was. But I guess if you want to compare him to a more veteran type of Paul George, where he can get to his spot, hit step back threes off of like a 3 or 4 dribble combo, I think Maxwell Lewis can be that guy.
I'm also kind of glad you brought up Maxwell Lewis, not only because he was my 18 pick, but I just wanted to say and get it out there that I feel like he's having a smaller or a lighter scale version of Brandon Miller's season. I feel like they play like the exact same way. I feel like just watching them. Well, I'll say Miller's definitely a more efficient, a better scorer, but I feel like the way that they do kind of get their money, if you will, is almost the exact same way. They're both 6. I don't know how tall he is exactly, but pretty tall, big frame, freakishly long arms, like, yeah. But, they'll get to the rim, they can create for themselves, take step backs, pull up threes. Maxwell Lewis is a guy who I feel like does have pretty high potential, but right there, I think the floor is just not as high as some of the other guys, and not necessarily as high as Brandon Miller's. Even though I said they're similar, I don't think that he's a top 10 or so player. Has some inconsistencies, but he's a guy to kind of look forward to his long-term development.
Speaking of long-term development, I think that is exactly what my number 18 spot, Anthony Black, is going to need. A 6'7", kind of a combo guard freshman out of Arkansas. And in Nick Smith's absence, he has kind of had to step up and be that guy in the backcourt for Arkansas pretty much all season. And I think he's done a pretty decent job. He's worked alongside of Ricky Council and Jordan Walsh and some of the other guys there. And for a team that really could have derailed a lot more than they did this year, I feel like he did a pretty good job of righting the ship, kind of keeping them on track as much as he could without who was supposed to be their best player, Nick Smith for most of the year. And we'll see if, now that he's back, if they can make that late push in the SEC tournament, a league that is very competitive, as I'm sure all of our viewers and listeners know. But I think Anthony Black has done a pretty good job. Good defensive player, still working on that raw offensive game, but I think defense can transition to the NBA because a lot of it is to do with effort, and if he wants to keep that effort up, he could be the number 18 player in this draft.
How about that 19th spot?
That 19th spot, I'm gonna make an adjustment. And I'm going to put Cason Wallace down at 19.
19? We were so high on him in the breakdown.
Well, yeah, but I feel like these guys before him can be... yeah, I'm going to stick with him at 19. Cason Wallace. I love him. I do. I really do like him.
You didn't even have him on your board, did you?
I know, that's why I had to put him on there. But
holy cow.
I forgot to. But I think that's also probably realistically where I would have put him anyway.
Hey, that speaks a lot about Cason Wallace if you can forget about him.
Well, hey. I said too, I almost forgot to put Keontae on here. So I had to make a bunch of last minute. I should have just put them all in here before and then, because I kind of did it weird. But yeah, 19 is where I would have had him. I think too, I like what he does defensively. And I think he's going to have a long career in the league, but these guys just have the higher potential.
All right, but for my 19th spot, I've got my second Duke big. I have got Derek Lively, 7'2" big man. He's kind of fallen from preseason hype. A lot of people thought he could be a top 10 pick, but really defense has been his calling card all season long, and it's taken a little bit for him to show that spot and kind of establish himself in the rotation for Duke. But that defense, when he has shown it recently, has been something that's really impressed me. So I think he is still worthy of a top 20 pick. I think he's got a lot of potential, and I don't think he's shown enough for him to fall outside of the top 20, but definitely more toward that bottom of the range there. So Derek Lively at 19.
You are a lot higher on him than I am. At number 20, I actually have Ryan Rupert. He's from France. He plays for the...
Ryan Rupert plays for New Zealand Breakers in the NBL.
Okay, that's what I was trying to check. But he's from France. He plays for the New Zealand Breakers. And he's a guy who, he's just, one of the best things about him is just that he's a guy who can shoot the ball. Not much more to say. He's shown that he's definitely going to get drafted in the lottery. There were some questions about that, or not in the lottery, but in the first round. There were some questions about that coming into the season. But yeah, guy I'm excited to see when he's actually in the States.
My 20th player is the second Alabama player. I have got Noah Clowney, big man, freshman, 6'10", played alongside Brandon Miller all year long, and he's not been super special. He's been kind of all right this year, but I think as such a young player, he's got a lot of potential to grow. Are you not feeling that big, Brandon?
I had him a lot lower. Not gonna lie, but
well, we're gonna kind of fly through the rest of the way here. So I'll actually start us off. 21, I've got Bryce Sensabaugh from Ohio State. 22, I've got what?
I just didn't realize you'd have him so low. Oh my god,
So low.
so low. Yes,
All
I will say I do know that the pretty mainstream idea, like a lot of the outlets, they do have him around that spot, so it's not that crazy. But
22, I have got Dylan Mitchell from Texas. 23, another ACC player. I've got Terquavion Smith. 24, another ACC player. I have got Judah Mintz out of Syracuse. Probably one of my favorite players in this late first round. I don't think he's even being talked about in the first round on most of these mock drafts, but he's a freshman averaging around 18 points per game, and he can get to the rim. He can shoot step back jumpers. Kind of a really good isolation player for Syracuse, and I think just a really good player. I really like him. 25, I've got Kellel Ware, freshman big out of Oregon. 26, I have got Jalen Wilson out of Kansas. Getting another...
that's exactly where I had him.
Getting another upperclassman in here. 27, another upperclassman, Keontae Johnson. I was really struggling going back and forth between him and Jalen Wilson. Who would get that upper hand there? Keontae goes behind Jalen. 28, Imani Bates out of Eastern Michigan. Makes his way into the top 30 on my big board. 29, and this is an impressive feat for him because 29, I've got Marcus Sasser out of Houston, who I think is a very good player. So Imani Bates getting over him is very impressive for him. Number 30, I'm not feeling it, Brandon. I have got Taylor Hendricks at number 30. I really just don't like how much he relies on jump shooting. You look at some of his recent film, and he's just, whenever he does try to attack the rim, he is just flailing in the air, not taking any actual good shots, and he's just taking step back jumpers. Efficiency is there, but I don't know how much a 6'9" guy that can't comfortably attack the rim is reaching up on my board. And then an honorable mention, number 31 for me, I've got Colby Jones out of Xavier, 6'5" junior.
Okay.
All right, Brandon. We'll let you cook.
Hot seat. All right.
At 21.
So at 21, I got Kyle Filipowski from Duke. Then I got Jordan Hawkins at 22. 23, I've got Kellel Ware. 24, I've got Terquavion Smith. 25, I've got Chris Murray. 26, I've got Derek.
Bro? Chris Murray at 25?
I know. I might have put him a little low. I'm not gonna lie, but we'll let it we'll let it slide for now. We'll let it slide. 26, I've got Derek Lively. 27, I've got Jalen Wilson. 28, I've got. No, I'm gonna make a.
Wait, you have Derek Lively at 26. I thought you just said he had him at like 23 or something.
I messed mine up, so I realized that the order's a little bit different.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So, 28, I'm gonna make a change. 28, I think I'm actually gonna move up. I'm gonna knock out Dylan Mitchell, and I'm gonna put CD Sissoko at 28.
Are you gonna knock him out outright?
Yeah, we're gonna move him down.
Drama.
Move him out of that top 32.
Dylan Mitchell, my number 22 player. He's out of the top 30 for you.
Yep, I'm just not. He's athletic, don't get me wrong, but like so many other people are. Not just like I like the intangibles that CD Sissoko has, or CD Sissoko. Then, so that means 29, I'm gonna have Marcus Sasser.
Oh, okay, we matched there.
30, I'm gonna have Noah Clowney, and 31, I'm gonna have Amani Bates, just for fun.
Just for fun. You made a whole video on him.
Just for fun.
Maybe he earned it. I mean, yeah, but you know.
A little honorable mention, if you will.
Well, honorable mention. Well, this has got to be one of the longest podcasts we've had, especially since our mock draft, I think, was the only one that ever got this far. But 31 players on either side of these big boards. We're going to have them all over the socials and stuff. So if you do want to, they should be on our screens right now, the official big boards, as well as they will be on our Twitter, which that will shoehorn perfectly into how we do this next. How about we wrap this up, boys?
Yeah, I hope you all enjoyed our big board special here on League Bound. I'm sure you all agreed with my picks as always. So yeah, make sure you follow us on social media. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Jacob Schrantz.
Wait, I'm gonna get competitive here. I want to know who had the better big board.
Ooh, okay.
So yeah, we're gonna make a poll. I'm trying to figure out who had the better big board for real. But yeah, follow me on Instagram at Branden.Blue and follow me on Twitter at Branden_Blue25. And you can follow the League Bound at _
Here. Just did you go or did
I
you?
did.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can do it. If you want
Okay.
to. Okay. Yeah, you can follow me at Brody Wilken on Twitter and at Broderick Wilken on Instagram. And yeah, you can follow League Bound just under League Bound on Spotify and YouTube. Just look up League Bound. You'll find it easy peasy. And
we're on Google now too. You Google up League Bound, we're right there.
We are on Google. You can also find us on Twitter at _League Bound _. So, yeah.